Thank you, Dr. Kadri. As you see on your agenda today, we were supposed to have Dr. Glenn Abbott come up to give a presentation here on faster, smarter clinical trials. Unfortunately, for us, she wasn't able to make it up from Buffalo, so I may last-minute fill in. What we've been able to do is get questions from some key stakeholders in medicine, from pharmacy, from physicians, from the Canadian Alzheimer's Society, and we gave them the opportunity and said, we've got a room full of pharmaceutical executives today, and what questions would you like to pose to them? So we've got some video questions from some experts, and we'll give you an opportunity to answer their questions via your touchpads. Afterwards, if there's an opportunity for comments or questions, if you'd like to put in more insights or experiences into it. So first we have Dr. Eve Roberts, who has a question on pricing, and perhaps we can just go straight to that video.
Drug pricing is complicated. Discussion has focused on the high cost of new drugs, products of contemporary resource-intensive research. I am interested in the recent disturbing trend. Namely, some companies are acquiring the license for an established old drug and then capriciously inflating its price. These drugs are off-patent, generally single-source in Canada. Their safety and efficacy have been demonstrated by decades of clinical use, not by current standards of drug development culminating in randomized, controlled clinical trials. Some are absolutely life-saving. For example, Trientine for Wilson disease. Others are critical treatments. For example, vitamin K to treat the clotting disorders of chronic liver disease. Their markets are often limited, but not necessarily minuscule. Companies that produce these old drugs deserve to be compensated for the costs of maintaining a secure supply, not given the opportunity to make windfall profits based on lack of competition. What is the Canadian pharmaceutical industry doing to promote good citizenship among its member companies through development and enforcement of good practices with regard to fair pricing of these essential old drugs? Are new, potentially external regulations required to maintain Canadians' access to these important time-tested remedies? Thank you.
So your touchpad question is, are new external regulations on pricing required to ensure access to legacy prescriptions for Canadians? The answers are yes, no, or don't know. Thank you. Just a couple of anecdotes in this area. We've heard of the stories of Turing and their great big price increases. Within about a month of their product coming out, a compounding pharmacy in the United States offered to make the drug for $1 a pill. So the market has a way of correcting for pricing challenges like this. As soon as the price went up, it opened the door for a generic competitor. On the other hand, I was involved with a Canadian company that was acquiring a legacy asset earlier this year. In April, we raised $200 million in 10 days. And the first question out of the bank's mouth when they were asking about how are we going to find upside for this brand was, how much of a price increase are you going to put on it? Recently, I was working with the same company. We're going back to the same banks to acquire another asset. And the first question out of their mouth was, you're not going to put price increases on this just to find upside, are you? Again, there is a mechanism in place to regulate what these prices might be. Our second question comes from Mimi Lowy Young, who is with the Canadian Alzheimer's Society. If we could have her video, please.
Hello, I'm Mimi Lowy Young, and I'm the CEO of the Alzheimer's Society of Canada. Here's my question to the pharmaceutical industry. What is the role of the pharmaceutical industry in the following area of research? Focusing on research related to risk and preventative factors for cognitive aging, and on developing and improving implementation of interventions aimed at preventing or reducing cognitive decline and remaining cognitive health. Thank you very much.
So what is the pharma industry doing for Alzheimer's patients? You have 4 options here. All all the above. I think we recognize that, we've heard of the baby boomer and this population bubble for some time now. Have anticipated this was going to change healthcare and where we could invest dollars. There's a statistic that came out last week. New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland, for the first time, those three provinces, the rate of death exceeded the rate of birth. That demonstrates just how older our populations are getting in some parts of our country. Third question is from Phil Emberley, who's from the Canadian Pharmacists Association, and he has a question about market access.
Hi, I'm Bill Emberley, Director of Professional Affairs at the Canadian Pharmacists Association, and my question is about pharmacare. Every day, pharmacists meet Canadians who can't afford their medication. That's why the Canadian Pharmacists Association is calling for a national consensus on a pan-Canadian pharmacare framework. We know how to improve access both ways. We've heard from Canadians that their private insurance is working. How do we get more people covered? That's just one piece of the puzzle, and it's not just a problem for governments. There's an equal role to play for health professionals and industry stakeholders. Pharmacists are at the table, and we're making a plan. My question to you is, how will the pharmaceutical industry rise up to the challenge and improve access?
So how will the industry rise up to the challenge and improve access in a national pharmacare system? Yeah. Hopefully by collaboration, and by collaboration, we as an industry have to make sure that we're a true partner at the table. The collaboration doesn't just mean you're going to reduce your price to make sure you get access. We have to be involved in the discussion of patient care and patient outcomes in a more holistic environment. Fourth question is from Dr. Danielle Martin, and her question is about research and development investment in Canada.
My name is Danielle Martin. I'm a family physician, and I'm the Vice President of Medical Affairs and Health System Solutions at Women's College Hospital in Toronto. My question today is, compared to other OECD countries, the pharmaceutical industry invests less on a per capita basis in Canada than almost any other comparable country. What specifically will you do to ensure that your company invests as much in Canada on a per capita basis as you do abroad?
Very direct question and a very poignant question. And as the current economic climate is not conducive. Because the Canadian research and development, we've got great doctors, we've got a sophisticated healthcare system, enthusiastic enrollers. We get more patients into a clinical trial than just about any other country in the world. Perhaps the costs are high. Perhaps the fact that we invest here, but then we don't get the reimbursement later, as Andrew Casey was speaking about earlier, the holistic ecosystem, where you invest knowing that you're going to get returns, but if we can't get those returns later, those investments have to go somewhere else. Thank you very much for your responses. I invite, if there's any other comments or questions, the microphones are now open.
Wayne Gower from St. John's. I'll pick up on the last point because I've been doing clinical trials in this country for 25 years, and I've done over 250, and really have seen the erosion of clinical trials in Canada. And I think this whole cycle is important, and that we view it as really an ecosystem. The thing that's sad is that we do have the best. I'm in dermatology, so I've been part of all of the innovations in psoriasis and some other stuff. But we do have, great infrastructure. We do great. We have the best data when you stratify it worldwide. The issue is the reimbursement end, and I think that some of the previous governments actually were innovative and extended the patent life so there would be some recuperation of that investment. I know one of our premiers in Newfoundland was very upset that we weren't getting our fair share in Newfoundland and Labrador because of that. And so I think this is something we need to, it's been talked about, it's not new, but it needs to be brought forward to our governments again, and that, you're not going to get the innovation, you're not going to get the investment if you don't, it's like we say in clinical trials, if you want to do a clinical trial, you got to be able to use the drug after. And people who do the trials but don't prescribe the drug don't stay on the program very long. People who do the trials and use the drug, they continue to get new trials. trials. And I think that really the same thing needs to happen. This is not new. We go back to Mulrooney and Brian Tobin days. They had a great approach to this, and maybe we need to look at it again, refresh ourselves.
Yeah, those are great points. Certainly the biggest uptake in a brand's success is how well it's used prior to launch. Getting your customers involved, getting physicians involved, getting people with their hands on the product really dictates what your launch curve is going to look like. But of course, the market access is the great limiter on that curve as well. So when we're talking national pharmacare, we need to be speaking in terms of investment and return. Well, thank you very much.